Hello, everybody. I am Jonathan Rosenfeld, and today on the Personal Injury Podcast, I am joined by my colleague, Nathan Huey. Nathan and I have worked together for, I don't know, many years on different types of senior living and nursing home type cases. And I am going to talk with Nathan today about assisted living facilities. Nate, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, I guess one of the things that we're seeing, as a general trend in the senior living space and the nursing home space is the emergence of assisted living facilities. They've really started to grow in popularity over the past, 5-10 years, where people once upon a time, they may have placed a loved one in a nursing home or a different type of facility, but now there seemed to be a push towards placing seniors in assisted living facilities. And with that, obviously, there's some good, there's some bad. But today, I want to talk with you about, the differences between an assisted living facility and a nursing home initially, and then we're going to talk about some of the issues that a family may encounter. So, I guess to begin with, what is an assisted living facility? Can you just sort of explain what it is from a legal perspective?
Sure. First, I think that one of the things I need to say is I practice in South Carolina, and assisted living, facilities, although they're probably largely the same from my understanding across the country, they are regulated, more on a state basis as opposed to nursing homes, which have sort of federal regulations which transcend different states largely with the state overlay. And so, at least here, assisted living facilities are an opportunity when someone needs care that can't manage what we would say, activities, daily living totally on their own. And it can be anything from somebody who just needs meals prepared for them, on up to different levels of care. Basically here, if someone gets to the point where they need true nursing care, then it's time for them to go on to a nursing home. So assisted living, I think, offers more of a home-like environment, but with, again, in theory, assistance from caregivers and offers activities and those kind of things so that people can, rather than sitting home alone, sort of be in more of a structured environment, but also have social aspects.
So, I guess that sort of goes into the next issue. You sort of touched on it, but a nursing home is considered a medical facility in the eyes of the law, and an assisted living facility is more of a, I guess a care facility, a senior living facility, and generally, you would agree with me that a nursing home provides a higher level of care and provides more medical services than a assisted living facility.
Sure. I mean, I think that that's 100% accurate, that a assisted living facility can provide care up to a certain extent, but when it comes time for skilled nursing, or if someone has wound issues or those kind of things, really at that point in time, at least in theory, they shouldn't be in an assisted living facility. And essentially, if an assisted living facility can't take care of them any longer, they need to get them out of there to a nursing home.
So if a family has a senior, a loved one who's, at home, whose health may be declining, they may need some assistance. How do a lot of times, you practice in the field of nursing home litigation, but I'm sure sometimes you come into a situation where family says, "Hey, Nate, I'm not really sure, what's the best facility for my family member?" And obviously you're not a doctor, there's a lot of, parameters, and things that you could say. But when someone's thinking about a facility that's correct for their loved one, how would you sort of differentiate the two? And what do you tell a family like that?
Well, and you're talking in terms of assisted living versus nursing home, or are you talking about specific facilities?
No, assisted living versus nursing home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, again, one of the things with assisted livings that I find is an issue from time to time is that they are almost all for profit, and they have pretty slick marketing tools, and they have sales directors and things that you wouldn't think would really have a place in the care setting, but they do have all of those. And so assisted livings can be a good place, but you really have to look past sort of the gloss and all of that, and get behind the scenes and see what their quality of care is and those kind of things. In terms of nursing home versus assisted living, I think a lot of it depends on not only the sort of physical needs of the resident, but whether or not they are suffering from dementia or any type of Alzheimer's related issues. Some assisted livings do have specialized sort of lockdown areas where people who have those issues can be taken care of in a safe environment, and others don't. So obviously, if someone has dementia, one of the things we see sometimes when they are in an area that's not good for them is they're able to get out, or and endanger themselves because they're past that level of care. So really, again, I think what we touched on at the beginning, assisted livings are appropriate for people who do need some help with everything from making sure they get up and get to having their meals provided to them, to having their room cleaned. And it can go on past that, having their meds passed out to them, and those kind of things. But once it gets to the point where someone has need for rehab in terms of, if they've got pressure ulcers or those kind of things, also known as bed sores, and they're going to need turning and repositioning or skilled nursing care, then they're certainly not appropriate for assisted living. And I think that what happens is a lot of people start out where they're okay for assisted living, and then they get in there, and it's not exactly what you asked, but the assisted living facilities, again, once the people are in there, they're making money off of them. And it becomes very difficult for them to do the right thing at times and say, hey, we can't take care of them anymore. They need to move on to a nursing home. And I think the family sometimes has to be diligent about that, and look and say, can this facility really still take care of my loved one? If they're having falls or having repeated things happen, then it's probably time, if the facility isn't doing it, to look at on your own initiative, trying to get them onto a higher level of care.
Well, I think you sort of hit a couple issues sort of square on. I think one of the important issues in any type of senior living arrangement is to really go out and visit, your family member, your loved one, and, really be an advocate for them, and really watch, how they're being treated, watch them over the course of their stay at a facility, because, frankly, as a family member, you're in the best position to really evaluate their overall health and their overall wellness, and when you do see an issue, you could nip it in the bud, as opposed to letting that linger and really allowing problems to develop.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that was one of the, now that we're sort of coming out of the COVID lockdowns and things like that, I think that's something that is imperative as places are opening back up and allowing people to visit. That's something that you really have to do. I can't tell you how many different calls that we got during the time frame when family members weren't allowed to go in, and they were, something bad would happen and nobody really knew how it happened, or the people went downhill greatly. And again, you got to be there. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. So,
yeah. In terms of, lack of care at a assisted living facility, or even negligent care at assisted living facility, what are some of the main areas, in terms of litigation, or just in terms of people contacting your office after they've, had a situation involving a loved one at a assisted living facility that may have declined or really suffered an injury? What are the main types of, issues that people are contacting your office about?
And this isn't the most common one, but we did touch on earlier. I mean, I've had multiple cases over the years where someone gets out of a facility and something bad happens to them, or they're found outside with a broken hip or things like that. That's obviously should never happen if they're displaying any signs of dementia and those kind of things. But really, a lot of the cases involve around multiple falls. And, the assisted livings kind of want to have it both ways, where they say, well, we're not really providing any kind of skilled care, and we have to let the people be independent. But that's not entirely true. They are required to do care plans, or they may be called personal service plans, but they have to figure out what level of care the people need. And if people are having repeated falls and repeated injuries and those kind of things, then that is certainly indicative, in my opinion, of negligence. And that's one of the main things that I see with the assisted living cases. I actually just had one that I mediated 2 days ago that dealt with that, issues with multiple falls and other things. And, again, the other issues a lot of times will be things such as sometimes medication errors. They do have med techs that will pass out medicine, and, just like people who take the wrong medicine from the pharmacy that aren't in a facility, you can have adverse reactions to that. Moving forward, there are issues with bed sores or skin breakdown or pressure ulcers, however you want to say it. And that's something that when that starts to happen or happens in a assisted living setting, they really on their own need to take the initiative to get the resident on to a nursing home after consulting with the family. And so sometimes I see cases where someone has developed significant skin breakdown, and rather than getting them out, they want to keep collecting that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month or whatever they are from the family and keep them in there. And of course, that can lead to infections and sepsis and whatever else, and death. And so those are some of the main issues that I see.
No, I mean, I think that anytime that, someone's involved in a care facility, obviously they have to just watch, use common sense, watch out for overall decline, watch out for changing condition, watch out for, weight loss. Weight loss is a, pretty drastic indicator in many instances where people have, really deteriorated after they're malnourished or dehydrated, and problems arise.
Absolutely. And you touched on that area, and that was something I should have mentioned, because again, with the people that need assistance with eating and needing those things, if they're not getting the nutrition, then everything else goes downhill from there. And that's something that when you see that weight loss itself is a pretty easy to tell, an indicator that something is gone awry.
So if a family has, a loved one at an assisted living facility, they start seeing some decline. Maybe they see an issue involving a fall with a fracture or a subdural hematoma from a fall. What would you suggest the family do in terms of taking action at that point?
Absolutely. I mean, I always say any type of falls with fractures or things like that are significant enough to warrant contacting an attorney and talking to them about the case. It's something that shouldn't happen. You mentioned subdural hematomas, head injuries is what we're talking about. And a lot of times when those things happen, it can, you can obviously lead to death, but it can also cause sort of a step down who people who have Alzheimer's or those kind of things. They don't recover once they have those kind of injuries. They never go back to baseline often. And so anytime I see hospitalizations as a result of a fall or as a result of infections, whether that's an untreated UTI or something leading to sepsis, I think that all of those warrant contacting an attorney, because more often than not, once you dig into things, there's a lot more at issue than what the family first complains about. And sometimes the family thinks that one thing was the main issue, and you get in and you realize they totally dropped the ball on something else. And so again, I know that your office, like mine, if people come in and want us to look into something, it doesn't cost anything. And I mean, again, the only way that these facilities end up changing a lot of times is when people do take them to task or hold them accountable for failing to provide proper care. As really the only motivation they have to change is hitting them in their pocket.
Well, I've certainly seen, your work in action, and I certainly appreciate it and respect what you've done. And hopefully if anyone has any questions about this, they can contact your office. I really appreciate you talking with me today about this. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right. I'll talk to you soon.